right. Hey, everybody. We are back with Nerd Variety. We are in season 3 now, second episode. And today, we're actually kind of redoing a topic where it's more of a sequel. Not really redoing, but more of a sequel. We are talking about a topic from the very first episode that we did way back in season 1. It was representation in media. So this is representation 2.
Representation 2.
Yes.
This time with Josh.
Yes, this time with Josh. Josh could not make it to our first one.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But we want to talk about this because we are all sort of from, I don't want to call them minority groups. What would you call us?
We all have different
None of
backgrounds.
us are straight white men. So, yeah, we all come from different backgrounds. So it's something that we want to talk about.
I had to...
What?
I feel embarrassed about that because I was about to question, wait, Davies is, and oh, wait.
No, I know that we don't do video anymore, so just so everyone knows, Davies is black. Because we can't see him anymore because we don't do video.
Well, his shirt is black. I don't know. I mean...
Ha, 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 ha. Husher the comedian, everybody.
It depends on how specific you want to be. I
would say that we're all just shades of brown, but I haven't been outside in like 2 weeks, so I'm definitely white. Yeah. Like a ghost.
Yes. But no, there's a lot of diversity here. I mean, as much as you can get with 3 people, I'd say.
Pretty much.
And last time I was really excited, actually, because I don't think Borderlands 3 had actually already come out, but I remember hearing and getting excited about the character Flack, because I had just found out that I was non-binary, and that was a whole exciting thing for me. Super weird and complicated to wrap my head around, but still exciting. And I guess they, Flack is, was known to be a non-binary character. I was pointed out to me as well later, though, when I was talking about it with other people, that it's a bit cheap because, they're a robot. So they really shouldn't be gendered anyway.
I mean...
Right. It's all about...
My Alexa's a girl.
Right. It's the programming, but, robots are designed for a purpose, and how does that purpose relate... Purposes usually have to fall underneath the gender,
Yeah.
Right. So it does feel like a little bit of a cop-out.
Yeah. And, it was kind of brought to my attention, too, that there's a lot of non-binary, I put that in quotation marks, again, I forgot we're not doing video, non-binary-ish representation, but a lot of that are not actual humans.
Yeah, and then the conversation that we were having in our sort of prep conversation, I mentioned that I do an online tutoring sort of thing, and we have a story and we have characters, and 2 of the characters are non-binary in case the kids want those options, right? We don't want to feel like we're pressuring them into one or the other, but the characters are non-human. One of them's a fox and one of them's an elf. So it's that same sort of like, I don't know, it's interesting. It's interesting because I do wonder how 8-year-olds would react if they did have a human non-binary character, like what the reactions would be from children. But
yeah,
but it's just another example of not really going the full way.
Yeah, you don't have to have everything kind of this or that, because everybody's kind of on a spectrum anyway.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but this time there was a recent game that definitely has some better representation, what I would call real representation in human form, that I am particularly excited about, and especially since so far it's my favorite game of the year, I would say. We'll get to that a bit later. We'll get into specifics, but again, as of now, I just want to say I'm a bit hyped up on this, so there's only like one way that it could have done it any better. So, yeah, I'm excited to talk about that.
But first, we're going to talk about why does it matter? it's important that we have representation. And this is like a general sort of thing, but also if you guys have any specific examples, Hunter and Josh, as to why it matters to you, we can talk about those. So I'm happy to start.
Oh, well, okay. I was, there was a big silence, so I thought I had to talk.
No, it's good. So for me, female representation has been an interesting thing because, like, there are women in movies. Like, that's not something that that's not something that we're unaccustomed to. There are a surprisingly small percentage of women in most forms of media. But honestly, the numbers are not really what gets to me. It's more like how people are portrayed, because I've never been like super feminine. And I don't wear makeup. I don't really wear skirts. I'm most comfortable in like jeans and a t-shirt. But like,
you look wonderful for not wearing makeup.
Thank you. There's a filter on my camera. It's fine.
No.
But it's always been a struggle to not see, women who like to game but aren't like gross gamers who like shove Cheetos and Red Bull in their mouths. Like, to have someone
shove Red Bull in your mouth?
I don't shove it in.
Yeah.
Right? So I feel like
the
there's
whole
this
can.
gamer girl stereotype.
Yeah, shotgun the can.
Yeah.
There's this gamer girl stereotype
just the
that
actual
really...
can. Just eat the can.
Excuse you. I'm talking here. There's the gamer girl stereotype, which I don't really identify with, and there's also the girly girl stereotype, which I don't identify with. And I feel like a lot of women in games and movies and everything fall into like very finite categories. And women are just so much more complex than that. And it's unfair that like you don't really see anyone that you're like, oh yeah, like I get this person. You're like, no, not really. So from a personal standpoint, that's why it's important to me, and that's what I would look for in good female representation, is having more of them and having women of different colors, because that's definitely something we're lacking.
Yeah.
But also seeing women with more complex characteristics.
Yeah. What was the question again?
Why is diversity important?
Yeah.
I'll tell you why it's important. Because there are a lot of people like myself, non-white kids who grew up and they had a lot of things to watch on TV, a lot of things to read, but a lot of those were not really written for kids of color. And it's good for, and it's been great. It's been a journey from the sci-fi shows of like Star Trek and movies where, oh my God, there's a black character on the show and he's being portrayed as he has a personality that's not a stereotype. That gave so many opened the doors for so many more people to come into that genre and to be like, hey, I can be part of this universe too and have a personality and be respected as someone who's and actually have a part to play in this. And it's just been great to see that, and I've seen that more and more as the years have gone on, with all of the slew of sci-fi shows, and seeing like in comics and like DC and like not and like comic based TV series and movies where you have a character that's originally white and they cast a black character, showing that in the like history of this character, it doesn't really matter what their race is. It shows like you can put someone in there and bend the story to show like, oh, this person's story can be told through a different lens.
Yeah.
Which has been,
And I've always thought it was fascinating because the medium of sci-fi specifically meant that in the 60s there were people of color on the spaceships because they had this foresight. The creators had this foresight to say, in the future, color isn't going to matter. Like, because in the 60s, it definitely did, right? Unfortunately. But, like, they had the foresight to look forward and say, like, let's have all these different people with different cultures and ethnic backgrounds on our ship represented. Still a lot of white people, but they tried.
Yeah. Yeah, they have to put their foot down for a lot of choices that they wanted to make. Some things were like, the people up top were like, whatever. And then some things were like, whoa, what is this? What is this? It's like, just calm down. It's fine. You're thinking way too much into it, and You're
Yeah.
kind of showing your what you're about, and you need to kind of get with the times. People love this stuff and they want to see more of it, and they're not going to care.
Mm-hmm.
People that really care about the show aren't going to care about this little incidents of like, what a interracial relationship or this character having like a significant arc on the show.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I feel it's a bit weird now, at least. Maybe it's more I'm noticing it now, but I feel like more often, even in like sci-fi stuff, there are people that you hear from, at least I have heard from, that do get upset about stupid things like that. That it's like,
But those are stupid people, and why do we
yeah,
care about
I
them?
mean, that's,
Like, the thing about
that's
it
a very
is,
fair point.
especially in the world right now where we have the internet, I mean, you see Karens, right? And anti-maskers and anti-vaxxers and all these people, and they have such a louder voice now than they used to. Like, there were people back in the 60s, I guarantee you, who saw an interracial relationship on Star Trek and immediately like swore off the show. Like, they existed. They're just so much more apparent nowadays because of the internet.
Yeah.
But there's such a small percentage of people that it's kind of insignificant. They just seem like a larger percentage nowadays because they're
it's the
they
vocal
can have,
minority.
They can have a whole like YouTube video about it, or a whole do a whole Reddit subreddit about
right. It's so much easier for a single person to get acknowledged than it used to be.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting given our topic now and why we need more diversity. Yeah, I just think it's interesting.
The racial thing to me has always been it's been something I've been thinking about a lot recently. I think it's because they were gonna cast like a full white cast for Mulan, and it's just like, really? Like, really? This is something that we're still working on. Like, I know it's something we're still working on. Like, we need to get more people of color into media, but like, that was such an example of like, it's really still that bad.
Yeah.
Sometimes, like,
really?
I
don't recall hearing that.
Like, it's absurd that it's still as prevalent of a problem as it is.
Yeah. I'm sure I think there are some people that wanted to get certain actors for certain roles and try to help the studio. I guess they were like, oh, the studio we can get more people in the watching it if it's like this, but you're not doing the story justice if you're not putting showing hey, this was set in Asia, in China, where there are Chinese people and other non-white people living.
Yeah, and it's like it seems so obvious that it's like, why are we fighting about this? Like, just make it. Just cast Chinese actors.
Yeah, and I mean, I think in some markets at least, there's definitely people, I believe, that will, at least there's potential that actors like that will, that are cast, that are not whitewashed, let's say, for lack of a more concise phrasing, whatever words, that they may feel that they need to be better. Why is my phone not on silent? Sorry. They may need to act better. They may need to just do a more serious job because, there's going to be, as you said, a lot of people are going to be drawn in because of an actor or something that they know that has recognition. So if people do not have as much recognition, then, I assume they know that they're going to have to work a bit harder, to be recognized and, to give people a reason to come see that. Mm-hmm. But, also just kind of speaking of this, there's one thing that recently came up that I'm not entirely sure about how I feel. Just because I have a hard time really seeing its need. Specifically from BoJack Horseman, there's a character, Diane Nguyen, who is Vietnamese American, born and raised, but her character was born and raised in, I don't remember, I want to say Chicago or Boston or something.
The United States.
Yeah, the United States. So they don't, and like
Her.
you meet her family, and like they have like a thick accent. Again, I think it's Boston. Um, and so like even a whole part of their characters is that they don't really identify with their Vietnamese culture because they've just they've adapted. But there was a whole thing with that, with her character, Diane's character, because the actress who voiced her was Alison Brie, who, if you know her, she is white. She's definitely white. And I guess some people were upset, and she kind of said later, a bit after the show had ended, that it should have been voiced by a Vietnamese American voice actress instead.
But I definitely understand why it would be more debatable because it's animated.
Yeah, and that's kind of my point. Like I mean, I guess I understand, getting diversity in every form of medium out there, even if it's just voice acting or something, even if you're not seeing the person, just to kind of be able to know, if you're trying to relate to a character in some way or another, just see representation of your whatever you identify as, or
yeah. Well, I think that's kind of the two big things for me would be like, first of all, just trying to do the character justice by finding an actress who like really understands her background. But also I feel like people are more aware of like who voices characters these days, again probably because of the internet. And so I feel like if I was a young Vietnamese American girl and I see like my favorite character in this, I mean, I know BoJack Horseman's like not a kid's show, but if I see this character and then I learn she's voiced by a white woman, I would probably feel kind of let down.
Yeah, but I mean, for me, there's also I have really no say in this, but I mean, I'm kind of also like, well, the character is representing that group, right? Or that, I don't know. I'm blanking on words for things.
I can see both sides of the argument.
Yeah, it's been a current thing now with a lot of characters who are like, I think the Indian character in The Simpsons and Cleveland's Brown's character in Family Guy, both actors are stepping down. They're white guys, and they're stepping down from the roles so a person of color can play them, or I can act someone who's actually black or someone who's actually Indian can play those characters. And it's a question of like, a voice actor, is supposed to be able to be anybody. That's one of the reasons why I was really interested in getting in voice acting myself. Is just I can be anybody. It doesn't matter what I look like. I could be this alien from a planet on the far side of the universe, or I could be just your neighbor, whoever. But in today's society, it's like we are kind of questioning that. Should if a character is going to be making these jokes about if a white can a white guy that's voicing a black character make these quote unquote self-racist jokes,
right?
Yeah, is that fair? Can they I mean, they have been doing that, but now it's like, well, maybe it might be better coming from like someone making the jokes about themselves instead of someone else making those jokes.
Well, and that's why I would say, like, if you have a black character in your animated TV show and you don't even like have a single black person on your staff, that's probably a problem.
Yeah,
like you should have someone contributing some input into the making of this character,
or like telling them, hey, you guys are going way too far with this, or
like somewhere there needs to be someone stepping in. Yeah.
Right. So it's a kind of a current conversation.
Yeah.
Definitely needs some people weighing in on both ends of the argument.
Yeah.
Did you have anything to add about LGBTQ representation and why it's important?
Why it's important? I definitely think it's important to just help. I don't know, help people see that there's representation, especially if they feel. As someone who is, trans and fits into a very specific category in the LGBT community, and even it's kind of like it's nice to see just the diversity within those groups as well, because you may be really questioning it yourself, and you may think, well, like, I'm not a part of this group because I don't match up to these specific things that I've seen,
So
which is why
yeah,
I
so
think
I feel like
I was just going to say, I think for me at least, especially LGBT representation, I feel like it almost should be more prevalent than a lot of things because of how diverse just the LGBT community is in itself.
I imagine you have a lot of similar problems that, I mean, that all of us do, and that's why we're here, which is even when you have those characters in a story, they fit into like very narrow categories, right? So I even came up with like, these are some of the categories for women, like you have like motherly, like the bitchy CEO, or like the nerd girl, and those are kind of like the three big ones. And I feel like in the LGBTQ community, the most common stereotype is the very like flamboyantly gay man,
Yeah.
right? And it's like, there's so much more than that. So like even when you are having those characters, like having a depth of character and seeing a variety of people who fit into these categories is so important, because not every gay man likes to like wear makeup and skirts.
Yeah.
They just don't, right? And if we try and pretend that they do, that's just not doing the group justice. That might even be worse than like not having them in there. It would be debatable.
Right.
And not every individual that was assigned male at birth, but presents feminine, is a gay man in drag.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's a lot of it's still pretty, I guess, something new to talk about nowadays. Like I remember like back in like the 90s and the 2000s, it was like, oh, homosexuality, that's a weird different thing that was like,
that's a new
like,
thing.
Yeah, how does that work? And now it's kind of like, okay, we don't understand, homosexuality a little more. How does trans, gender, binary, how does that work? What does that look like? And people are like, I don't know, it looks like this. No, it doesn't like that. What are you talking about? So It's good to have that shown in the media, like, bit by bit, so people can see, okay, it doesn't have to look, just like this. It can look like this and this and this, and all these characters can bring something to the table.
But in reality, I feel like every group deals with this, even like the straight white man idea, because for so long you have this sort of like, shoot, I can't remember the name of the actor. He was the actor who just did like all of the westerns. I can't remember.
John Wayne.
Yeah, that's the one. Like very much that kind of guy, just like a man's man, never cries, super tough, right? Like these ideas of like this perfect man, right? And I feel like even that is not accurate. Like even if you're trying to represent the straight white male community, we're not doing a very good job, because there's so many different kinds of people, and they're so much more complex than movies usually make them out to be. So I feel like in every aspect of humanity, we're just not really hitting the mark.
No.
We have definitely come a long way.
We have, and that leads nicely into our next point, which is, where do we see some better representation?
I in a little segue here, talking at anime, I've seen like, I know watching anime growing up, it was mostly, like characters were, either like Asian looking or white looking in the shows, and growing up, like anime was one of the things that kind of brought like the blacks and whites together in my school. Like everyone was like, guys were like sports, and then the nerd, and then guys who like sports were all about sports. The guys who like, there were guys who weren't about sports, but then a lot of us came together when it came to like Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh and anime, and just it really just like changed, like brought everybody together. And now seeing that done a little more in like, anime-esque shows like Avatar, like Voltron, even this anime that came out last year on Netflix, what's it called? Cannon Busters. And then animal shows like the Boondocks, just showing like, okay, anime is this fantastical world, and it could be, and it can be done so many different ways. And you have some people of some black characters in the show, and you're still getting your anime that you can really get behind and enjoy.
Yeah, I was actually going to mention a similar show The Dragon Prince, which is made by the people who made
Yes,
Avatar, which is really good. And I'm trying to think about, they do have some good like cultural representation. They have some amazing female characters.
Absolutely.
And the one that I really wanted to point out, and I'm obsessed with her, is Amaya, who's the general. And I've just been rewatching the show, and she has probably one of the most gorgeous scenes I've ever seen in animation, where she's mute, I guess, because she seems like she can hear. So she signs, and she has a translator. And there's a scene where she's sitting at her sister's grave or monument, and she's signing to her sister. And it's gorgeous. And the thing that always gets me about it is they don't translate what she's signing. They don't tell you what she's saying. Her translator doesn't say anything. There's no subtitles. It's like a very personal moment between her and her sister who's passed. And it's just like really gorgeous and really well done.
Yeah, I keep forgetting about Dragon Prince. We don't talk about
it's so
that enough. I watched. I need that's something that's another anime I need to rewatch, or another show I need to rewatch.
Yeah, I've been rewatching it recently, and it's so good.
Yeah, again, I don't watch anime a lot, so that's not really my section.
We don't know why,
but
clearly,
for me, I've again, I was talking earlier about what I've been excited for recently that had some good representation.
Yes, tell us.
And it's so The Last of Us Part 2 came out like a month ago or so now. And I replayed it again just the other day, and I love that game. Not just because it's a fantastic story and very well acted and everything, but it also has, so you have two main playable characters in this, and first of all, both are women, and right there you also have, they're also pretty different but very similar in a lot of ways. First of all, one is a pretty buff, rather muscular woman. She's straight and kind of deals with all that relationship drama stuff. Then you also have like what you could say is really your main character is she's a little skinnier, a bit lighter for sure. And her strengths are more that she's quick and agile and not necessarily as strong, but she's also a lesbian. And she has this real complicated relationship with her girlfriend in the game. Kind of progresses throughout there, and I love their relationship, first of all, and it's very unique, I think, because and I believe, I haven't really looked into this, but unless there's something I missed, the girl that she's in a relationship with is bisexual, which I like how even in that relationship they're able to cram a little more diversity. So with that, you have them, and then you also have a character that's introduced a bit later in the game that is, you have a trans man. The kid's a bit younger, but they're a trans man, which I feel like you get more often than trans women. Definitely more than non-binary. But I think a large reason for that is...
Sorry, remind me, trans women are
women.
Currently women? Okay, cool. I can never remember. I feel so bad, but I can never remember. I'm like, okay, all right,
you
cool.
Feel bad.
I do feel bad.
It's a new
women.
Thing.
If you think about it, just remove the trans part.
Okay, that's probably a good
okay.
Remember. Yeah.
That will help.
Well, can I posit a theory as to why there's more trans men than trans women?
Well, I think it's easier. I think it's easier for people to accept a lot of times, and it's usually a lot easier to show that transition.
But can I posit why?
Yes.
Because women are still treated as inferior. And for a
Very likely.
man to try and become a woman is shameful, and for a woman to try and become more manly is praised.
Yeah.
Interesting theory.
I mean, think about it. So, like,
I want to
oh, dude,
throw something at you for this, but
obviously it's different, like, to like fully transition.
it is the way you are phrasing that whole thing. I want to throw that at you, but I don't know, because I do feel like how you're phrasing it is how a lot of people see it.
So
too.
it is obviously very different to like actually transition, and that is clearly like way like treated as way worse than just aspiring to be one way or the other, or like admiring things, like wanting to like highlight certain aspects of your personality that are the opposite of what you are. Definitely fully transitioning is, I'm not saying this well.
No, you're not.
It's a difficult conversation.
This is like I was talking to a friend the other day, and
let me say, either way, if you are trans, clearly you are dealing with more persecution than just a man who is feminine or a girl who is masculine. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, I agree with that.
in sort of just like personality traits, I mean, you see it all the time in terms of like a girl trying to step up and like be manly and wearing like the pantsuit and going to be a CEO is seen as like, oh, she's really tough and really strong. But a man who wants to stay home and like spend time with his kids is weak and whipped and like all of these other things. And I feel like those mindsets that people have, it's possible that they also translate over to being trans one way or the other. That's what I'm trying to say. I hope I said that better that time.
There's also, I feel like, and maybe this isn't true, but I feel like a lot of times because you get a lot of, obviously there tends to be more violence, and fighting in video games. So I think that's a reason you get a lot more, maybe more trans men in there, because trans men are generally more seen to be, it's still kind of sticking with the stereotype of men at that point, where that, if there's someone who's assigned female at birth, then and they're trying to transition, then it seems like, oh, well, then they must want to be masculine, or they must be aggressive and want to fight and beat things up, right? Because and someone going the other way, someone assigned male at birth and going to female, then they're going to want to be more feminine, which and not fight, which is not, that's not proper representation. That's still very stereotypical.
Right. You can apply those concepts to any gender, race, whatever.
Yeah.
Just because people have the desire to protect and nurture and see something grow, people also have a desire to fight and get their hands dirty and get involved with something, just and be tough and aggressive. It's kind of it's another changing landscape we're seeing in our culture and in media.
Yeah, but like another, just to kind of come back to the example I used earlier and actually introduce a new one. Well, not new, a different one. In Dragon Age Inquisition, which I also recently replayed, there's a character. They're not really a main character. They're like a mercenary that works as part of the company for one of your companions. They're a trans man as well, but they have very little screen time, and they're like a butch warrior type. Whereas in The Last of Us Part 2, I feel like they just deal with it better, because first of all, the trans man has a sibling, has a sister actually, who like in their little tribe thing, they were like they're all assigned roles basically early in life, and the sister was assigned to be like a warrior, and then the trans man wanted to be wanted to be a warrior as well, like his sister, but instead was assigned the role to be a wife, and he didn't like that, so it was the whole thing. And it's
I mean, as
yeah,
someone
so
who is a
I think
wife, I feel like I'd be upset if they're like, your job is to reproduce. I'd be like, screw you.
yeah, that's
Like, I
but
don't think
again,
anyone would enjoy being
I
assigned
think
that, but
the whole way they dealt with that, and
yeah.
comparing him to his sister's story and all of that, I think they did it a little better.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just my 2 cents on that.
Yeah. It seems like if we were to draw, because I'm trying to start a wrap up, if we were to draw general conclusions about representation, is that clearly it's getting better. I think we would all agree that it's getting better, but it's not getting better particularly quickly. And as much as we are seeing an increase in characters who are trans or who are a person of color or who are female, they're still not great. It's still not great representation because they're not really like accurate people most of the time. So before we move on though, I do just want to backtrack and because I feel like I stepped on some toes with
only about 3.
I'm sorry with what I was trying to say earlier. I just need to like shove my foot in my mouth because I don't know what I'm saying.
Really flexible.
I used to be. I don't know if I can do that anymore. But I know that not all the language that I used when trying to explain this whole trans and female, male, the stigma that comes with being female versus being male. I feel like I said it all wrong. I feel like I'm just going to say it wrong again if I continue moving on, but I am sorry. And what I meant to say, I still agree with, but I probably didn't say it very well. So
I agree.
Don't cancel me. I'm sorry.
In the end, we're all still learning.
I'm learning.
I'm
trying. And I think if I'm correct, the problem was with saying that men are trying to become women or vice versa. That's the problem.
Yes.
Yes, and I understand that that's the problem, and I was trying to take it from like an outside perspective of someone who's already judging the situation, but I think I didn't do it very well.
I mean, it's fine. We're going to be hosting auditions, but don't worry.
I'm sorry.
As soon as as far as you're concerned, it doesn't. It has nothing to do with
anything. I don't know.
Okay. Anyways, so now we just wanted to kind of wrap up with what do we want to see? Like, what representation are we still kind of missing? And maybe if any of us have any ideas in how we want to see it represented, or the media specifically.
I have kind of a big one that's personal for me, which is I'd really love to see some ugly women in movies and TV shows and games. As someone who's never
feel better about yourself.
No, just as someone so when I was in high school, I really wanted to be an actress, but after being in a few plays and never getting a lead role because my friend will not be named, but is gorgeous and tall and blonde, she always got the lead roles. Kind of started to feel like Hunter, I was not going to name you. So
it's okay. I'm not gorgeous or blonde, so.
You are tall though.
I am tall.
Who's this in the video feed then?
But I never was assigned a leading role, and it definitely started to feel like, first experiencing that, but also seeing the same type of women physically being in movies all the time, started to kind of give up on this dream of ever becoming a leading lady.
Mm-hmm.
Which is really unfortunate. And even like there was this movie, I can't remember what it was. Oh, Sierra Burgess is a Loser is what it was, which is starred sister of one of our friends from BCM. But she plays this girl who's like this nerdy girl, and like no one wants to date her, and like blah blah blah, and like she's still gorgeous. Like she might be a little bit on the heavier side, but she's still like really pretty. And so it's like, and you see that all the time where it's like, oh, what was it? In like Princess Diaries, sorry.
Very different.
Got, like
movies.
Curly hair and glasses, and they like give her contacts and straighten her hair, and they're like, now she's pretty. And it's like she was pretty before. Like she just had curly hair. So like these stigmas about female beauty, I think, is kind of one of the biggest things for me that I'd like to see changed.
Yeah, it comes down to beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
even though you think your audience likes that type of woman,
and even if there is like
that's not as you see relationships in all different all different combinations.
And even if there is like a larger, less traditionally attractive female in a movie, being fat is like one of their character traits, which is not how being fat works.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's the fat girl. She's like weird and fat.
I notice it tends to
it's not a personality
it tends to be a to steer them toward like a comedy trope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But but it can be more than that. It could be this person has a real story to tell. Let them be dramatic if they want to be dramatic. Or if they want to be funny, let them be funny. If they want to be
or make their weight like a not like. So even in like I've seen movies where they're like there is a larger leading lady, but like them being large is still like part of the plot.
Yeah.
Right. And it's like just let there be fat people in movies.
Yeah, because
specifically fat women, because I feel like fat men are in movies all the time. But
right.
Yeah.
That's my big one.
Well, also I was gonna say before we get, I'm sorry for saving this till like the end, basically, but we did mention in our discussion before this one thing that I wanted to also bring up, a different kind of representation that we don't really have here, is which I just saw actually in a show that I was told about called what is it? Love is a Spectrum or something like that. And that, it's good representation of, in this case, individuals on the autism spectrum, which that's the kind of representation you don't really see a lot. Which it's nice. It's nice to see, I think, especially since I work with, or the population I work with has. Yeah.
And again, I feel like that's one of those other things where, like, even though you might have characters who are disabled through whatever means, that's still like part of their characteristics or part of the plot, and they can't just exist outside of like needing to be disabled for a reason.
Yeah.
So, and I think that the LGBTQ community has the same problem, right? Like, so often it's like, oh yeah, this is the gay character or this is the trans character, and it's not just like they're just gay. Like, it doesn't really matter. Like, it doesn't really affect the plot all that much. Like, they just are. Right? I think that's kind of the representation that
this person can be black, but they don't have to be, a thug, or they don't have to be subservient to the main character. They're a real person. They have a job, or they do their own thing, and that kind of plays into how the story goes out.
Yeah. Well, so while I want to see some more representation of, or some better representation, again, I kind of hit on it earlier, but just more diversity even within, like, say, just the trans community, and then even further than that, the LGBTQ plus community. Specifically, I always want to see more non-binary people now, but that kind of thing, and then also maybe like asexual and still some kind of romantic,
because as
looking for relationships, because that's definitely something that I think is misunderstood. And I like how it's dealt with in BoJack Horseman a bit later, but anyway, sorry, what?
As someone who clearly does not have the best understanding of all of that stuff, I do feel like, unfortunately, I do get like a mental picture in my head of like what an asexual person looks like, because I feel like they're kind of always done the same way. I don't know, I feel like I've seen like one or two in movies and they kind of like have the same sort of personality, or they have the same kind of vibe to them, and it's like, that really doesn't seem like it would be accurate.
I really cannot think of a single asexual character, like unless they're supernatural. They're a supernatural figure. I mean,
for me,
otherwise there's no like normal person that's like, oh yeah, I'm asexual.
Right, but like if you have some exposure, and there's not much, right? You probably do have like a specific mental image, and that's the problem when you're talking about, like, to go to a very common example of like the gay man is like a flamboyant sort of thing. It's like you get this image in your head when you think, oh yeah, it's a gay person, and it's like, that's just not what they are. That's not close. There's so much more to that.
I mean, and it could be, but again, that's very specific. That's very specific to the individual, and it's not tied to sexuality or anything. But yeah. So yeah, that's I think my part on that, what I want to see. And I mean, I'm also kind of trying to work on write some things, but I'll go on with that.
2 cents there. Yeah, I'm enjoying seeing what a lot of people what we've these new like shows and movies that are allowing Black voices to be told in a way that's saying, hey, this is their story. Don't try to whitewash it or water it down. This is what it is.
Yeah.
Luke Cage showed the was a good show that showed the Black community in Harlem, and kind of how, and they kind of showed their own version of police brutality and how that can even cross racial lines. I really enjoyed how Black Panther just kind of really told how they let the story from the comics be told as it was, that this was a technologically advanced society that was trying to protect themselves, but also they wanted to do the right thing and help the rest of the world. And they mentioned that, hey, Black people have had a rough time in the world where they've been mistreated and discriminated against, and it was actually good to bring that up in a movie that was made for the whole family, not something that was they didn't try to hide it away or ignore it. They let the story be told. And I think starting especially with everything that's happened this past summer, people are like, oh yeah, let's be more willing to share that perspective, make sure people understand that, because a lot of people try to ignore it and pretend it doesn't, everything's fine, or there's no such thing as racism.
Yeah. I feel like one of the things that I've heard a lot about that is important, I can't remember exactly what they call it, but it's this idea of the white savior in movies, mm-hmm. where it's a story about Black people in this particular time of history, but they're still I think The Help is the most quoted example, where it's but there's this white girl who's going to come in and give the Black people a voice, and it's that's not really helpful. You're still showing that the Black people need white people to help them and give their freedom and all that, and it's just not
in a certain context I can see it working, but that has to be very specific, trying to tell something that's based on a real story, at least.
Yeah.
Where you use facts from real life telling a story that's true. Yeah. I don't think it should be something that's a go-to used for fiction.
It seems that's
huge, and that's how kind of some change gets done, because mm-hmm. someone's using their voice, their privilege, or their influence to help another group move ahead. But it doesn't have to be done. We don't have to see that in every movie. That can't be the only way how people can get ahead.
Yeah,
it takes some blood, sweat, and tears to really really get us to where we can all be equal.
Yeah, I won't say that has never actually happened in real life, where a white person has to step in for a Black person, because I guarantee that has happened, right? But mm-hmm. we also need to see that not happen, and see Black people stand up for themselves, because that also happens, but we don't see that nearly as much in the media. The percentages are just way off.
Yeah. They're coming around though.
Anyways,
slowly but surely.
Hannah, did you have something else to talk about for what you want to see? Or?
I don't think so. The biggest thing is variety, because there are women in movies, not enough, and not of different colors, and not of different gender identities. You're still dealing with a lot of white women, and they do fall into some very finite categories, I think, primarily. And I don't fall in any of those categories, and most women don't, so it's upsetting.
Yeah. Anyways, this is a big topic that we could talk about for a long time.
I'm so scared that I've offended everyone.
I mean, you probably have. But,
I didn't mean to.
It's fine. It's not fine, but at least you're working on it, and you're
There's a reason I'm a math teacher and not an English teacher. Math is very, definite, and, I know exactly what's going on.
Until they start changing it, they do. Anyways, there's a very strong possibility that we may pick this up again. Maybe we'll do a part 3 next summer. Next summer. So, we will. Thank you for listening. I hope you guys enjoyed.
I think we all wants to tweet at us and very gently correct me on all my mistakes, I accept it. But please don't be mean. I'm trying.
Or if you just want to have a conversation about diversity, we're down to talk and hear all sides.
Yeah. we have open ears even when they're covered by headphones. So, thanks guys for coming and listening. I guess you didn't really have to come anywhere, but thanks for listening. And yeah, hope you enjoyed. We will see you next time for some topic. What is it?
I don't remember.
I don't remember.
Find out next week.
Yeah. Anyways,
see, now there's more suspense.
Until next time. All right, since this is a group one, we all have to say it at the same time.
Oh no, it's gonna go terribly.
Right. Until next time, nerd out.
Nerd out.
Nerd out.